Hi friends, welcome to our channel Global Health Helpline. Today we will learn about a homeopathic medicine Carbo Vegetabilis from the book, Lectures on Homeopathic Meteria Medica by James Tyler Kent. It is the second part of this video. Please see the first part by clicking on the link given in the description box. Please subscribe our channel to be connected with us. Let's begin. Face. The face of Carbo Veg is a great study. In the countenance and in the expression we see much that is general. The patient shows his general state in his expression, especially in the eyes. He tells you how sick he is, he tells you the threatening points. In Carbo Veg, there is great pallor and coldness, with lips pinched and nose pointed and drawn in. Lips puckered, blue, livid, sickly, deathly. Face cold, pale, and covered with sweat. As the tongue is protruded for examination it is pale and cold, and the breath is cold, yet he wants to be fanned. This is true whether it be cholera, diarrhea, exhaustive sweats, or complaints after fevers. Sometimes, after a coryza has run its course and ended in the chest, there is great dyspnea, copious expectoration, exhaustive sweat, great coldness and the patient must be fanned. Cough followed by dyspnea, exhaustion, profuse sweats, with choking and rawness and he wants to be fanned. Cold face, pinched face. So the sufferings are expressed in the face. The pains and aches, and anxiety and sorrow are all expressed in the face. The study of the face is a delightful and profitable one. The study of the faces of remedies is very profitable. It is profitable to study the faces of healthy people that you may be able to judge their intentions from their facial expressions. A man shows his business of life in his face, he shows his method of thinking, his hatreds, his longings, and his loves. How easy it is to pick out a man who has never loved to do anything but to eat, the Epicurean face. How easy it is to pick out a man who has never loved anything but money, the miserly face. You can see the love in many of the professional faces, you can single out the student's face. These are only manifestations of the love of the life which they live. Some manifest hatred, hatred of the life in which they have been forced to live, hatred of mankind, hatred of life. In those who have been disappointed in everything they have undertaken to do we see hatred stamped upon the face. We see these things in remedies just as we see them in people. The study of the face is a most delightful one. A busy, thoughtful and observing physician has a head full of things that he can never tell, things he knows about the face. So the face expresses the remedy. In Carbo Veg, the face flushes to the roots of the hair after a little wine. This is a strong characteristic. All over the body the skin will become flushed. Sometimes a flush appears in islands, which grow together and become one solid flush, creeping up into the H. So great is the action of this remedy upon the capillary circulation that sometimes a tablespoonful of wine is sufficient to cause this flushing of the skin. Gums. The old books talk about scorbutic gums. Now we call it Riggs disease, a separation of the gums from the teeth. Bleeding of the gums, sensitiveness of the gums. Separation of the gums from the teeth. The teeth get loose. We hear about the teeth rattling in his mouth. Quote, the carbons produce just such a state, a settling away and absorbing of the gums. They get spongy and bleed easily, and hence looseness of the teeth with bleeding of the gums, which are very sensitive. Teeth decay rapidly. Bleeding of the gums when cleaning the teeth. Teeth and gum affections from abuse of mercury. Teeth feel too long and are sore. Drawing and tearing in the teeth. Tearing in the teeth from hot, cold or salt food. Pain from both heat and cold. This is in keeping with the general venous condition of the whole system. Sensitiveness of the tongue. Inflammation of the tongue. In certain low forms of fever, like typhus and typhoid fevers, the gums turn black. That is, they throw out a blackish, bloody, offensive putrid exudate. If disturbed or touched they bleed, and the tongue piles up that blackish exudate, that oozing a black blood from the veins. This is present in putrid forms of fevers like the typhoid in zymotic states. This remedy is rich in those zymotic symptoms, such as are described in common speech as blood poisoning. Carbo Veg is a sheet anchor in low types of typhoid, in scarlet fever where a typhoid condition is coming upon the case, and in the last stages of collapse. In cholera, and in yellow fever at the time of collapse, where there is coldness, cold sweat, great prostration, dyspnea, wants to be fanned. Great prostration with cold tongue. Mouth and throat. The mouth and throat are filled with little purple aphthous ulcers, which were little white spots begin with, but they have grown purplish and now ooze black blood. These aphthous patches bleed easily, burn and sting. Blisters form. Smarting. Dryness of the mouth with bleeding aphthous ulcers. These are common features of Carbo Veg. In any of the mouth and throat conditions. Tough mucus in the throat, bloody mucus in the throat. These little ulcers run together, spread and become one solid mass. A large surface will become ulcerated, denuded of its mucous membrane, and then it will bleed. Little black spots come upon it. Food cannot be swallowed because the throat is so sore. Generally the throat feels puffed. The carbo-veg patient has a longing for coffee, acids, sweet and salt things. Aversion to the most digestible things and the best of food. For instance, aversion to meat, and to milk, which causes flatulence. Now, if I were going to manufacture a carbo-veg constitution, I would commence with his stomach. If I wanted to produce these varicose veins and the weak venous side of the heart, this fullness and congestion, and flatulence, this disordered stomach and bowels, and head and mind troubles, sluggishness of the economy, I would begin and stuff him. I would feed him with fats, with sweets, puddings, pies and sauce, and all such indigestible trash, and give him plenty of wine. Then I would have the carbo-veg patient. Do we ever have any such people to treat? Just as soon as they tell their story, you will know enough about their lives to know that they are mince pie fiends. They have lived on it for years, and now they come saying, "Oh, doctor, my stomach, just my stomach, if you will simply fix up my stomach." But what are you going to do with him? He has made himself into a carbo-veg patient for you, and it may be quite a while before you can bring him down to a sensible diet. Now he must begin at the foot of the ladder. I only brought this up to show how a carbo-veg patient is produced and what kind of a stomach he has, and what he has been living on. He has burning in the stomach, distension of the stomach, constant eructations, flatulence, passing offensive flatus. In reality he is in a fetid condition, a putrid condition. His sweat is offensive. He has heartburn eructations, the stomach regurgitates the food that he takes. Carbo-veg has much vomiting at the end of the chill. Vomiting and diarrhea, vomiting and blood. With the vomiting of blood the body is icy cold, breath cold, the pulse is thready and intermittent. Fainting, Hippocratic face, oozing of thick black blood. Vomiting of sour, bloody, bilious masses. Stomach and food. There is an accumulation of flatus in the stomach, so that the stomach feels distended. All food taken into the stomach seems to turn into flatus. He is always belching and is slightly relieved for a while by belching. Carbo-veg has cramps in the bowels and stomach, burning pain, anxiety, distension. All these symptoms are ameliorated by belching or passing flatus. Amelioration from belching seems quite a natural event, but when we study China, you will see that the patient appears to be aggravated from belching. The idea is that the patient gets relief from belching from eructation, but under Lycopodium and China it seems that no relief comes. They belch copiously and yet seem just as full of mind as ever, and sometimes even seem to be worse. The carbo-veg patient experiences a decided relief from eructation. This is a particular symptom, but it becomes almost general, and sometimes quite general. Headaches are relieved by belching, rheumatic pains are relieved by belching, sufferings and distensions of various kinds are relieved by eructations. This abdominal fullness aggravates all the complaints of the body. The fullness, which is described as if in the veins, is sometimes in the tissues, under the skin, so that it will crepitate. This is a feature of carbo-veg, and, in rheumatic conditions, part of the swelling is sometimes of this character. Food remains a long time in the stomach, becomes sour and putrid. It passes into the bowels and ferments further, finally passing off in the form of putrid flatus. There is colic, burning pains, distension, fullness, constricting and cramping pains from this distension. The patient complains of feeling as if the stomach were raw. This is described as a smarting, sometimes from taking food, sometimes from taking cold water. Carbo-veg has cured ulceration of the stomach. It is a deep-acting medicine, and is capable of curing all disordered conditions of the stomach, such as disorders from eating indigestible things, mince pie, too hearty food. Liver. In carbo-veg, the liver, like all the other organs, takes on a state of torpidity and sluggishness. It becomes enlarged. The portal system is engorged, and hence hemorrhoids develop. Pain and distension in the region of the liver, sensitiveness and burning in the liver, accompanied by a bloated condition of the stomach and bowels. A feeling of tension in the region of the liver, the part feels drawn, as if too tight. There are pressing pains in the liver, and it is sensitive to touch. Abdomen. Much that I have said regarding the flatulence and fullness of the stomach applies also to the abdomen. Carbo-veg may be indicated in low forms of fever, as in septic fever, when there is a marked tympanitic condition, with diarrhea, bloody discharges, distension and flatulence. Extremely putrid flatus escapes, making the patient very offensive. A striking abdominal symptom of carbo veg is that the flatus collects here and there in the intestine as if it were in a lump. Incarcerated flatus, a constriction of the intestine will hold it in one place so that it feels like a lump or tumor, that finally disappears. Colic here and there in the abdomen from flatus. There is burning in the abdomen. No matter what the trouble is, in carbo veg, there is always burning. The part burns, it feels full, it becomes engorged and turgid with blood. Diarrhea, dysentery, cholera, when there is a bloody, watery stool. Cholera infantum, stool mixed with mucus, watery mucus mixed with blood. The child sinks from exhaustion, with coldness, pallor and cold sweat. The nose, face and lips are pinched and Hippocratic. With all diarrheic troubles, the prostration will indicate carbo veg, as much as, if not more than, the stool. In the diarrhea of carbo veg, all the stools, no matter what kind, are putrid, with putrid flatulence. The more thin, dark bloody mucus there is, the better is the remedy indicated. Itching, burning and rawness of the anus and roundabout are strong features of carbo veg. Soreness in all diarrheic conditions, soreness to pressure over the abdomen. Round about the anus, in children, there is excoriation. The parts are red, raw and bleeding, and they itch. Itching of the anus in adults. Ulceration of the bowels. This tendency to ulceration of mucous membranes is in keeping with the character of the remedy. Whenever there are mucous membranes there may be ulceration. Aphthous appearance. Ulceration of Peyer's glands. The patient lies in bed and oozes involuntarily a thin bloody fluid, like bloody serum. Bladder. Old chronic catarrhal conditions of the bladder, when the urine contains mucus, especially in old people, with cold face, cold extremities and cold sweat. There is suppression of urine. In both the male and the female organs there is a weakness and relaxation. The male organs hang down. Relaxation of the genitalia, cold and sweating genitals. The fluids escape involuntarily. Women. In the woman the relaxation is manifested by a dragging down sensation, dragging down of the uterus, as if the internal parts would escape. The uterus drags down so that she cannot stand on her feet. All the internal organs feel heavy and hang down. Another strong feature of carbo veg is dark, oozing hemorrhage from the uterus. It is not so often a copious gushing hemorrhage, the remedy has that also, but it is an oozing. The menstrual flow will ooze from one period almost to another. The blood is putrid and dark, even black, with small clots, and considerable serum escapes with it, it says in the text. Metrorrhagia from uterine agony. Quote, atony is a good name for the condition, lack of tone, relaxation, weakness of the tissue. Atony is everywhere present in the carbo veg constitution. The muscles are tired, the limbs are tired, the whole being is tired and relaxed. This is in contradistinction to the gushing found in belladonna, ipecac, secale and Hæmorrhages, where the blood escapes in great gushes, followed quite naturally by a contraction of the uterus, for there is more or less tonicity in connection with it. In carbo veg, either in connection with confinement or menstruation, or in an incidental hemorrhage, the uterus does not contract. Subinvolution from mere atony, no contraction, no tonicity, weakness and relaxation. After menstruation, confinement and the various complaints that woman is subject to, there is a period of weakness that carbo veg often fits. When there is a retained placenta, with scanty hemorrhage, just an oozing, with no tendency to a gush of blood, the physician remembers that throughout the whole pregnancy and confinement there has been sluggishness and slowness of pains, and he says, why did I not think of carbo veg before? The woman has needed carbo veg for a month. He administers a dose, and before he has time to think about it, the uterus will expel that placenta and fix up Ma. Teeters so nicely that he will not need the mechanical interference that might otherwise have been necessary. Nowadays we hear so much about this meddlesome midwifery, this curating, and doing this and that and the other thing, that it makes a homeopathic physician disgusted, just as if those parts were not made by nature, and could not take care of themselves, as if they must be swabbed out and syringed out. These injections of bichlorides, etc., to keep the germs out of a woman are all nonsense. If a state of order is maintained there will be no germs. A homeopathic physician can manage hundreds of these cases, and have no trouble. If he sees clearly beforehand what remedy the woman needs there will be no bad cases. They will all take care of themselves. Irregular contractions that bring on abnormal conditions are all avoided if the woman is turned into order before she goes into confinement. Carbo veg is one of the medicines that prepares a woman well for confinement, that is, the symptoms calling for carbo v. e.g., are often present in such conditions. She is often run down, relaxed and tired. Pregnancy brings about a great many unusual conditions. There is the nausea in pregnancy, the flatulence, the offensiveness, the weakness, the enlarged veins. They will tell you that the enlargement of the veins of the lower limbs is from pressure, but it is generally not from pressure, but from weakness of the veins themselves. Suppression of milk, prostration or great debility from nursing. It is not natural for a woman in a healthy state to become prostrated when nursing her child. She becomes so because she is sick. She was in a state of debility before she began nursing, and the weakness should be corrected by an appropriate remedy. Then she can make milk and feed her child without feeling the loss of it. Such is the state of order. Carbo Veg is a friend to the woman, and a friend to her offsprings. You will be astonished, after 10 years of real homeopathic practice, that you have so few deformed babies. That they have all grown up and prospered, that their little defects and deformities have been outgrown, and that they are more beautiful than most children, because they have been kept orderly. The doctor watches and studies him, and feeds him a little medicine now and then, that the mother suspects is sugar, to keep on the good side of the baby. She need not know that it is medicine, or that anything is the matter with the baby. So he watches the development of that little one, and grows him out of all his unhealthy tendencies. The children that grow up under the care of the homeopathic physician will never have consumption, or Bright's disease. They are all turned into order, and they will die of old age, or be worn out properly by business cares. They will not rust out. It is the duty of the physician to watch the little ones. To save them from their inheritances and their downward tendencies is the greatest work of his life. That is worth living for. When we see these tendencies cropping out in the little ones, we should never intimate that they are due to the father or mother. It is only offensive and does no good. The physician's knowledge as to what he is doing is his own, and the greatest comfort he can get out of it is his own. He need never expect that anyone will appreciate what he has done, or what he has avoided. The physician who desires praise and sympathy for what he has done generally has no conscience. The noble, upright, truthful physician works in the night, he works in the dark, he works quietly. He is not seeking for praise. He does this when called to the house, and when members of the family bring little ones to the office. In this manner children can be studied and their symptoms observed and inquired into. Whenever the mother brings the child, expecting medicine, she may know that he is receiving medicine, but when she does not ask for medicine, let her suspect that Johnny is getting sugar so the doctor can get on the good side of him. That is sufficient. Voice and larynx. In Carbo Veg the voice manifests a great many symptoms. I described a part of them when going over the coryza. I explained how it began in the nose, and traveled to the throat, the larynx, and the chest. Now many of the complaints of the larynx begin with a cold in the nose, which finally locates permanently in the larynx, and in that way we bring out the Carbo Veg cases. It is only now and then that the Carbo Veg cold settles in the larynx first. It usually travels through the nose. Most remedies have a favorite place for beginning a cold. For instance, the majority of phosphorus colds begin in the chest or larynx. Not so with Carbo Veg, its cold generally begins in the nose, with a coryza, and the larynx is simply one of the stopping places. If the Carbo Veg cold goes down into the chest, it may have its ending in the bronchial tubes or the lungs. There is a favorite place for it to settle, and it seems as if it were going to remain there. Weakness in the larynx from talking. Tired larynx of speakers and singers, and feeble, relaxed persons. The hoarseness comes on in the evening. The larynx may be fairly well in the morning, but as soon as it becomes evening his voice becomes husky. In more serious forms he may be speechless in the morning, but hoarseness and huskiness in the evening are more characteristic. Huskiness and rawness in the evening. Rawness in the larynx when coughing. Some will say there is burning, some will say rawness. Rawness in the larynx and trachea when coughing. A continual formation of mucus in the larynx, which he has to scrape and cough out. We see the same tendency to weakness in the mucous membranes. No tendency to repair, no tendency to recover. He goes on from bad to worse, with a catarrhal condition of the larynx and trachea. Hoarseness and rawness from talking, worse afternoon and evening. He is obliged to clear his throat so many times in the evening that the larynx becomes raw and sore. Let me tell you another thing about the Meteria Medica. Most of the provers were laymen, and hence there is some confusion of terms in the provings. This the physicians must see. Irritation in the throat from coughing nearly always means irritation in the larynx, though the prover said throat. Quote. Now here is an expression. Obliged to clear his throat so often in the evening that the larynx becomes raw and sore. Clearing the throat would not make the larynx sore. Scraping the throat does not scrape the larynx. But he is obliged to clear his larynx so often that the part feels raw. Ulcerative pain, scraping and titillation in the larynx. Irritation in the larynx causing sneezing. Laryngeal phthisis. This catarrhal condition and lack of repair in the larynx goes on so long that tuberculosis begins. Whooping cough. Carbo Veg is one of the greatest medicines we have in the beginning of whooping cough. Its cough has all the gagging, vomiting and redness of the face found in whooping cough. It is one of our best medicines when the case is confused. When the cough indicates no remedy or when it remains in a partially developed state. A dose of Carbo Veg, in such cases will improve matters very much, and minor cases of whooping cough may be wiped out in a few days. When the remedy does not cure permanently, it brings out more clearly the symptoms calling for another remedy. Most cases of whooping cough, in the care of a homeopathic physician, will get well in a week or 10 days under a carefully selected remedy. When allowed to run, they continue a long time, gradually increasing for 6 weeks, and then declining according to the weather. If it is in the fall, the cough will sometimes keep up all winter, so whooping cough furnishes an opportunity for the homeopathic physician to demonstrate that there is so. Mething in homeopathy. Respiration. The Carbo Veg patient suffers very much from difficulties of breathing. Suffocation. Cannot lie down. A feeling of weakness in the chest, as if he could not get another breath. Sometimes it is due to cardiac weakness, and sometimes to stuffing up of the chest. The latter is most common. Sometimes the difficulty is asthmatic. The remedy cures asthma. We will see the patient propped up in a chair by an open window, or some members of the family may be fanning him as fast as possible. The face is cold, the nose pinched, the extremities cold, and he is as pale as death. Put the hand in front of the mouth, and the breath feels cold. The breath is offensive, putrid. The extremities are cold clear to the body. Not only the hands, but the whole upper extremities, and not only the feet, but the limbs clear to the body, are cold. The body only feels warm, even the skin is cold. Carbo Veg has a rattling cough with retching and vomiting. A morning cough, with much rattling in the chest fills with mucus, and on endeavoring to expectorate he coughs and gags, or coughs and vomits. At any time during the day a peculiar choking, gagging, retching cough may develop from the mucus in the chest. He cannot get it up, it is tough, purulent, yellow and thick. Greatly reduced vitality, great relaxation, worn-out persons, old people. Persons worn out from coughing or from prolonged exertion. Prostration. Catarrh of the chest, with copious expectoration. At times there will be a hard, dry hacking cough, but finally, after prolonged coughing, it commences to loosen and he throws up great quantities of mucus. A dry, hacking cough, yet there is rattling in the chest, and the cough does not seem to do any good. He seems to cough and become exhausted, sweats and strangles. It seems as if he would suffocate with the cough. Finally he succeeds in getting up some mucus, and the follows mouthful after mouthful of thick purulent expectoration. Frequent attacks of spasmodic cough in violent paroxysm lasting for many minutes, sometimes an hour. Cold sweat, coldness and pinched appearance of the face. This increases as he goes into the paroxysm of coughing. His face looks haggard, so distressed does he become while in a paroxysm of coughing. This state is present in old physical cases, in the advanced stage when they are incurable. Under such circumstances Carbo Veg furnishes an excellent palliative. It seems to strengthen the muscles of the chest so that the patient can expectorate better. It mitigates the cough, the gagging and retching and dyspnea are relieved, and he is temporarily improved. It is a wonderful palliative in many incurable conditions with dyspnea and weakness of the chest. In Bright's disease, in phthisis, and in cancerous affections Carbo Veg stops the violent symptoms and mitigates greatly. This remedy is one to begin whooping cough with. It simplifies the case greatly, and sometimes cures it in a few days. The patient coughs until the chest is sore, as if he had been beaten all over the chest. All night he has paroxysms of coughing. He sleeps into a paroxysm of coughing, like lachesis. He rouses up from sleep with coughing, gagging, sweating and suffocation. He will go 2 or 3 hours without a paroxysm, and then on comes one that will last an hour. He has 2 or 3 hard paroxysms of coughing during the night. He commences to fill up, he hears the rattling breathing and he knows that before long he will have a hard time of it. This goes on and on, to the end of his life in asthmatic cases what is called humid asthma. Real humid asthma comes on in persons who suffer from contractions of the small bronchial tubes, so that even at the best there are little whistlings in the chest. Every time such patients take cold, their whistling increases. They expectorate mucus, at first copious, then tough and finally purulent. During all this there is great asthmatic dyspnea. Carbo Veg is an excellent remedy in all those cases of asthma where the shortness of breath is so marked that there is only a partial oxidation, as a result of which he suffers much from occipital headache and wants to be fanned. Old cases of recurrent asthma. Every time there comes a warm wet spell his asthma comes on. It is common for Carbo Veg asthma to come on in the night. He goes to bed without warning of an oncoming attack, only. He says, "I don't like the weather," and he wakes up with asthma. He wakes up suffocating, springs out of bed and goes to the window or wants to be fanned. Carbo Veg, required in old, badly treated cases of pneumonia, with a remaining bronchitis, in cases where there has been hepatization that was not cleared up, and there are bad places in the lungs and bronchial tubes, with weakness of the chest. Weakness of the chest when coughing. He feels that there is not enough force in the muscle of the chest to get up a good cough, or to help him carry on the breathing. Pneumonia. Third stage, with fetid expectoration, cold breath, cold sweat, desire to be fanned. Threatened paralysis of the lungs. This is a combination of clinical states that the remedy covers well. Sometimes these asthmatic cases go on for a while, and then comes an infiltration of tubercle. If Carbo Veg can be given early, it will prevent infiltration. There is pain in the chest, and burning. Burning in the lungs, burning in the sides of the chest, burning with the cough, burning behind the sternum, the whole length of the trachea, burning aggravated when coughing. A sense of rawness even when breathing. He feels a load upon the chest, an oppression, a great weight. These are the various words that he uses, all descriptive of the same thing. Heart. The heart comes in for a great deal of trouble. It appears to be struggling. Of course it is the venous side of the heart that is in distress. The veins are engorged, it is a venous condition of the whole patient, the veins are performing their labor with great difficulty. A state of relaxation, struggling, and there are orgasms of blood, described by some of the authors as an orgasm, by others as a tumultuous action of the heart felt throughout the body. Pulsation felt all over the body. Flushes of heat mounting upwards, ending in a sweat. Suitable, sometimes for women at the turn of life. Especially suitable to persons in advanced years. Carbo Veg complaints come on in a weakly state in young people as if it were a premature old age in the middle-aged people. Or in the breaking down that naturally belongs to old age. It is a great comforter for aged people with enlarged veins, or fullness of the veins and coldness of the extremities. Oozing of blood, with palpitation, tumultuous action of the heart. The pounding goes on like a great machine, shaking the whole body. The pulse is almost imperceptible. It seems as though the volume of blood ought to be tremendous, but it is not. Weakness of the whole vascular system. Pulse irregular, intermittent, frequent. Blood stagnates in the capillaries. Complete torpor, impending paralysis of the heart. Burning in the region of the heart. With this there is an awful feeling of anxiety in the chest, in the region of the heart, as if he were going to die, or as if something were going to happen. He feels that tumultuous action and tires out under it. In going over the remedy I have said so much about the limbs, their coldness and the cold sweat, that I have practically covered most of the symptoms that belong to the extremities. Carbo Veg is an excellent remedy for the general constitutional disorder where there are indolent varicose ulcers upon the lower limbs, the legs above the ankles. There is no activity in these ulcers. Thin watery discharge, or it is thick, bloody and ichorous. Burning indolent ulcers, varicose, ulcers, swelling of the limbs. A gangrenous state from the extremely feeble circulation. Gangrenous conditions such as old people have senile gangrene. The limbs wither, the toes and lower parts wither and look dusky. There are blisters upon them and they ooze a bloody, watery fluid. Burning like fire, loss of sensation, stiffness in the joints, excoriating sweat between the toes, and numbness. Numbness in the limb lain on. If he lies on the right side, the right hand gets numb. If he turns over on the left side, the left arm gets numb. The circulation in the part is so feeble that if there is any pressure the part becomes numb. The surface is cold. The extremities are cold. He is indolent, weak and always tired, with an aversion to mental and physical work. Every little exertion brings on a feeling as if he would faint and collapse. The sleep is full of dreams. He wakes up with dyspnea, wakes with cold limbs, especially cold knees. Legs drawn up during sleep. Unrefreshed after sleep. The dreams he has are the kind that most of these patients have, where the remedy acts so violently upon the veins, upon the basilar portion of brain, and upon the voluntary system. They are awful. He dreams of fire, burglars, fearful and horrible things. Anxiety, restlessness and congestion of the head prevent his going to sleep. Rush of blood to the head. His head feels hot, but to the hand the skin feels cold. The inner chest feels as if burning, but the outer chest feels cold to the hand. So it is in the abdomen. The feeling of internal heat and burning, with external coldness, is a common feature of carbo veg. The fever is violent, it has a violent rigor or chill. Of course during the chill he is cold, but there is one strange feature: he wants cold water during the chill, and when the fever comes on he has no thirst. That is strange, it is uncommon. It is common for patients to be thirsty when they are hot with fever, and when cold not to ask for water. It is common not to ask for water during sweat. But in this patient you observe coldness, rigor, cold breath, and even in the chill sometimes a cold sweat, and why? Oh, you say that it is peculiar that he drinks so much cold water. It is strange, it is uncommon, rare. Hence it is one of the strong features of carbo veg febrile conditions. With the chill of this remedy one side of the body frequently feels in its natural state of heat, that is, naturally warm, the other side, is cold. One-sided chill. Chill with icy coldness of the body. Chill with great thirst. Sweats easily, especially about the head and face, exhausting night or morning sweats. Sweat profuse, putrid or sour. Low forms of fever like yellow fever, and a very low type of typhus and typhoid fevers. After the fever has somewhat subsided he has prolonged cold spells with lack of reaction. He does not seem to rally, but he is cold, his knees are cold, his breath is cold, cold sweat, a sort of paralytic weakness. Cadaveric aspect of the face. Cyanotic face. Coldness of the limbs. Yellow fever in the last stage, the stage of hemorrhage, with great paleness of the face. Violent headache, trembling of the body, collapse with cold breath, cold sweat, cold nose. Nose and face pinched. Vital powers very low, tells a great deal of the story of carbo veg. Lack of reaction after some violent attack, some violent shock, some violent suffering. In weakly persons who give right out, with dyspnea, coldness, copious sweat, exhaustion, collapse and cadaveric aspect. Carbo veg must be given. Carbo veg is indicated after surgical shock, when the patient goes into collapse, and is in danger of dying from the shock of the operation. This is before inflammation sets in, for there is not vitality enough to arouse an inflammation. The heart is too weak to establish reaction enough for an inflammation. Thanks for watching full video. Please subscribe our channel. Click on the links for more videos.